Well, yeah, it goes into the escrow account. They want to get that 3% off. So that's the thing.
Because they got a book fair in the other place.
Oh.
But if you get 3% off, no, it's not less. It's not 3%. It's like, you have that. When I still had a mortgage.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Escrow account? Oh, yeah. I'll go and mess that was. Oh, oh, wow. Yeah. I finally got it done. Yeah. They wanted to see the paperwork. Says I have to pay a fee. Cancel. Oh my God. And one of $250. Do that. And so I said, I'm looking at my contract, original contract about the house. And I said, there was nothing in it that says I have to pay a fee.
They might go to August. I don't want to do it.
They said, well, we have that. I said,
No,
you're not talking that. I don't want to see it. I never did this. Ah, yeah. So I finally got tired of screwing out.
No.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to get my survey. How was our customer service? I told them, this is gonna be the first one I ever fill out. Yeah, long, yeah. Yeah, I know.
No, you will not. No. Wait till the winter.
Where's your wife at?
Not feeling that well.
Oh.
Been fighting
Oh.
chest congestion and stuff like that.
Wow, that's been a while. I mean,
A couple of weeks.
yeah, because when I took something out of the house, she was sick. I mean, I didn't get near her.
Yeah, I think she got that from me originally.
Oh, yeah, she said she did. We got one of the girls that's got bronchitis again. Oh, mostly.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
No, I just got out. Yes, I got it. It's
So that dispatch is a logging fire. Ryan Gardner called it in. And he's got eyes on it, and then our guys are gonna get eyes on it and tell him get ODF. It's when Ryan called it in, he told him that ODF was closed.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I'm like, so I called dispatch. I'm like, yeah, no, that's wrong answer. So they're calling the duty officer. There you go. So,
He had some friends move to Texas.
This here?
It's some stuff here. They got down there and found out their taxes were more there. Their property taxes go up 10% a year. You have to go in and appeal that to get them lowered. And it's automatic.
I thought Texas was a state that didn't have property tax. No, that's state income tax,
They
right?
have property tax. They don't have an income tax.
Income tax, right.
But they also have different sales taxes for different.
Well, if you don't have one, you got to raise the other ones,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Shit, with all the oil, they ought to be able to just
Yeah.
tax the oil.
yeah, like
That's
Alaska,
what
right?
Alaska does.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow,
Well, that's
Yeah,
good.
so they're actually they're moving to Nevada now. But just all, yep, we're gonna try Nevada. It's like, okay, man, whatever.
I heard Oklahoma's a pretty low tax state. I've never been there, but I've heard that from different people. In Tennessee, I
You wanna
heard.
live in the flat?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's Oklahoma. But, at the time, okay. Okay. So. Pardon me. These? Okay. So the April meeting of the Prospect Rural Fire Protection District Board is hereby called to order. Joyce, will you do roll call, please?
Yes, Lon Stockbrand,
Yes.
Clay Thomas,
Here.
Bob Scott,
Yes.
Pam Lee here, Joyce Durking here.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting? Or do we have any questions about those? I guess maybe that would be first.
I recommend, or make a motion, we accept them.
One second.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes from last month? Say aye. Aye.
Right.
Okay. Additions to agenda.
There's at least two. Melissa is here to give us a levy report,
Okay.
and Pam will report on the special work session, what we did on the contract.
Okay. So
Okay,
what?
Ask since we're in the Sherman Fair Fights, stuff, barely.
Okay.
Okay.
These are horrible.
Or we could move the tables up.
I'm gonna sit right there.
It's
So how about we put those two after the chief's report? So in between number 7, we'll do them both. We do Melissa first and then Pam.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Okay, so levy will be,
After the, after the chief's report.
all right,
And then Pam will be right after that.
good, good.
And then we will go on to number 7. That work?
Yep.
Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? No? Okay. Number 5, the financial report, Mr. Jones.
All right, now let's see here. Well, Bob Scott already brought up, we brought in a little extra in taxes this month. And 2,600, but you can kind of see there what income that's come in. We've had 254,000 in the LGIP account. There's not that near that much in there right now. So we're starting to spend out of there for some of the grant money that's in there. It just keeps moving through. We got a reimbursement from Fire District 4, and that's that grant that we worked together with them on, and they reimburse us for the payroll and the mileage for the vehicle. So that's kind of the income side. Personal services, those are all the same. Quite a few bills we paid. Down here you'll see 22,165. That's a Jackson County permit fees for the seismic project, and you'll notice that it's notation that we got a cashier's check because they needed to get that done right away, and they normally don't take checks. You have to either pay with credit card or some other way, and so but if we give them a cashier's check, that's the same as cash. So if we went and did that, that was a weird thing, but because we wanted to get it done ASAP so they could keep the process moving, and that actually happened before we started in April. But I think our total permit fees, zoning fees, and everything was close to $26,000 for that project, but they're all covered by the grant. Let's see, nothing else really big. There's pretty much standard stuff, a lot of payroll. Then you see the checks. We 26,000 the WRK for the seismic project, Oslo, a small check. Suburban propane for stations 1 and 2 is 920. And we'll see in the budget the actuals that we're getting close to spending our money for that this year. The local government law group that was advice and help with the levy wording to make sure everything was done properly. Our last quarterly payment for 911 dispatch. So you can see we had total of $62,616 in disbursements this month. So it's a pretty big month. So you can see there our total in all accounts minus 3 checks that haven't cleared, $216,670.18. And if you look here at the bottom, we're got around cash reserve of around 69,000. That's where we're at with that. Any questions?
That 69,000 carries us through till,
Well, I've actually subtracted out the 40,000. So yeah, it's going to take us.
okay,
So that's kind of what. So what's been happening is, and when I get some of the smaller payments, like for the seismic project, I was able to pay those and then get the reimbursement because it's a reimbursement grant. But now that we're really going to probably have like 250, 300,000 or more a month, I'm not going to be able to do that. But we were able to use some of those cash reserves to get that and then get refunded. It takes about a month to get reimbursed. Okay. All right. And so budget to actuals. Again, there's nothing really stands out. We're at 113,000 total for the year. So we got April, May, and June. We budgeted 119,000. So we might make that. I'm not sure that we will. I think we're going to come up short, but we'll see what happens. We're ahead on the interest. That is, and I don't know where interest is going. It has been declining, but with what's going on with, I don't know where it's going to go.
It's hard to tell.
It's really hard to tell. It might just kind of be flat for a while. Other than that, miscellaneous revenue. So that mostly that's that's a reimbursement. So let's see. So we got in about $7,900 in revenue. Okay. So as far as year-to-date totals, we're looking pretty good. Let's see. I'm looking, there's something. Uniform and clothing is almost triple what we budgeted, but we've had new volunteers and getting them outfitted. But that means we're spending money less somewhere else in operations to make up the difference. But we should be at about 66%. So anything that's over that. Yeah, there's everything else. We're looking pretty good. Medical supplies, we're actually down on this. We're not. I think maybe it's going to be close to restocking or something because we haven't spent near what we usually spend on that. So let's see how that goes. We got some good deals with Mercy flights, but we have hardly had many expenses with them this year. Other than that, let's see, nothing really. Training and conferences, we've still got a fair amount there, but I think we've got some people that are going to start some training. I'm not sure what that's going to be. So if you look down there and you'll see the grant expenses that we've had to date. So our total expenditure is $456,000. But 367,000 of that is grant. So we're at 89,000, 66.7%. And you'll see that I've transferred $77,000 out of LGIP into our credit union account. That's because numbers are getting bigger with the project starting, seismic project. So if you guys got any questions, that's kind of where we're at right now. We're just skipping by trying to stay in that budget.
Question. Any questions, Mr. Jones? Can we get a motion for the approval of the financial report?
Motion to approve the financial report.
I'll second it.
All in favor to approve the financial report?
Aye.
Aye. Number 6, Chief's report.
We currently have 13 responding volunteers and 1 new applicant. In addition, we have 5 specialty volunteers. Construction has begun on the seismic retrofit at Station 1. Station contents are not critical to operations are stored on Mill Creek Drive and the units at the trailer park storage facility. Our structural engine and water tender are stored and responding out of the bus barn on school property. The rescue truck, brush truck, and fuels reduction are running out of Station 3 at the Lions Park. 6210, which is our other structural engine, and 6260, which is the heavy brush truck, are still at Station 2 on the west end of Mill Creek Drive. Weekly training's being held upstairs at Station 3 for now. So construction is truly started. We don't go in and out of that Station 1. You don't go in there without a hard hat. You don't go in unless you're invited. So we're having our drills over at Station 3 in the Lions Park. Since last report, we've had 18 medical calls, 5 fires, 3 motor vehicle crashes, 3 mutual aid fire incidents. Also, since I wrote this report 4 days ago, we've had 3 medical and 2 fire. 2 of our guys are on a fire right now. We've met twice for combined training with District 4 in Shady Cove, and we'll have Dr. Bond, our medical advisor, in Prospect tomorrow for medical training. Our responding volunteers continue to meet every Tuesday for training. We'll have 2 firefighters. We have 2 firefighters signed up for Firefighter 2 Academy and fire instructors training, and 2 firefighters plan to attend the Southern Oregon Wildfire School, which is coming this spring. Grants in progress. There's the CWDG grant for $65,000. ODF training reimbursement grant, fire shelters, $10,000. Generator battery backup system, Nutella. So when I say in progress, we applied for these grants. We haven't heard back yet. Nutella Corporation pancake breakfast supplies and a gift certificate. Anheuser-Busch without a canned water. State Farm pre-owned refurbished laptop. Those were all applied for last month as well. We just haven't heard on any of those. We did just receive notice that we've been awarded the seasonal staffing grant, which puts 2 firefighters on staff most days in Prospect. So out in a truck. What we found last summer when we had that is that we're able to respond quickly because guys are out there with the radio in the truck with them. And we're able to do some projects like improve address signs, work on the buildings, vehicle maintenance, and they're right there listening to the radio, as opposed to us getting text, driving to the station, getting on the radio. It saves 5 to 10 minutes on all the calls. And again, thanks to Kathleen for all the grant work. Partnerships. I met with City of Shady Cove with their city planner and discussed how we can that's a misprint. How we can help a homeowner association with challenging fuels project. They have a homeowner association in Shady Cove. And they have a little situation they're trying to fix and not get everyone upset. And we're going to go in and help them. We're going to be there on I think it's the 1st of May. No, it's the 28th of April. We're going to go in and help them get some fuels out that one of their residents put on the ground. We're scheduled to complete the project with the volunteer firefighters. I met with Shady Cove Fire Department, discussed combined training and projects. I will be helping to instruct at the firefighter instructors course that's coming up with Chief Kroom. We have a day scheduled with Pacific Power and Prospect to tour their facilities, including the North Fork Reservoir and the local power plants. Shady Cove hosted vertical vent training. Christopher and Mike were able to attend that. They needed those sign-offs in their academy skills books. And Shady Cove has a prop. It's a sort of a roof that goes up. You put the plywood on it, you go up on it, and run the chainsaw and practice vertical venting. Kathleen and I met with Jackson County Fire District 4 regarding continued fuel reduction work. We meet with them every month. Kathleen also goes to their city council meeting and their fire board meeting. A state fire marshal visited Prospect earlier this month, and we walked recent projects we've accomplished with the community fuels grant. So we have that grant that we do for homeowners. Then there's this other grant we got for $75,000 for just Prospect for things that fall outside the first 100 feet of people's homes. And we had a contractor come in with a big machine and did a lot of work on 2 different locations. And then I worked with the power company to do some work at the 3rd location. So the state fire marshal was interested to see that. that helps us get future grants when they see that we're making progress. And like I said, we're gonna spread that over 2 to 3 years, that's $75,000, so that we can continue to address stuff as it grows back up. For the good of the order, Dave Connor donated 2 custom slab tables to the Volunteer Association. Those will be auctioned off at the Timber Festival. Proceeds will support the volunteers and operations. Tables usually sell for $1,200 each. To the sport. And Bob Jones has put in an inordinate amount of time and effort on the seismic project, as well as, so there's, Bob, who is it that we have the most trouble with the seismic project that doesn't like the
Gloria.
Yes, so there's a glorious woman named Gloria that things have to be just a certain way. When they're not that way, Bob has to fix it and redo the whole thing. And he's put a lot of time in that. And I really appreciate it. That's not all he's put in extra time on, but the upcoming budget cycle is taking a lot of prep work. And so anyway, really appreciate Bob.
Well, I'm gonna add one thing to yours. One thing that came up is we were dealing with insurance and we had to get some extra insurance for the seismic projects called property construction insurance. That's in addition to already having everything covered. And it has to be in place. And we had to get a quote for that, and we went to our normal place and got a quote. But while we were doing that, Steve Silva says, "Now, okay, so you're an ISO rating 9, right?" I said, "No, we're 7.7Y." And he goes, "What? We never knew that." So when I got the bill, we got $500 and some off on our bill because of the ISO rating. So it's just a thing to everybody to know. If you're within, I think it's 5 miles of a station, and I'm not positive on this, but if you're within a certain distance, you have a lower ISO rating than you normally would. You'd have a 9 or 10 if you're out there. You'd be 10 if you're past 5 miles. And so I think that's something that people, so our own insurance company didn't have it correctly. So in the future, that'll save us a few $100 every year, but that's the same thing that could happen with anybody that owns property. So
check your insurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You have any questions for me about the chief support?
I have a couple questions. One of the grants you mentioned, the first one was CWDG. What does that mean? CWDG, what is that?
Community-wide, so that's the community fuels reduction grant that we
Okay.
in conjunction with Shady Cove. And that grant is asking for a grant for a pickup truck to pull the chipper and the trailer. Currently use 6281. 6281's been limping for a long time. We don't have the money to buy a new truck, but we have applied for a grant for something equivalent of like a F-250 or F-350 to pull the chipper and the trailer.
So that's what that CWDG is for, the new truck. For that. Okay. And we had some secure files like for all volunteers and stuff. Are those still in the fire hall, or where are those now?
Nope. So the fire hall is absolutely empty. There's nothing, there's not a thing left in there. We have 2 storage units over at
Yeah.
so we have 2 storage units over at the trailer park,
Okay.
the RV storage. There's 2 storage facilities there. One of them is affiliated with the RV park. We have 2 units there. Everything in the station that we didn't need to use in operations got put there, including those files.
Yep.
And so they're behind.
And those file cabinets are all in the same, the smaller unit.
Yeah, which means we can get to them, but they're behind a padlock and like that personnel file is locked. So it's behind the locks.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? No? Okay. So between 6 or 7, we have next the levy report with Melissa.
Well, the levy committee is still meeting regularly. you know. We've actually been working pretty hard. And, just wanted to report that, we, since we last, we have staffed, Levy Information Center, the old gas station, you're probably aware of that, and, it will reopen soon for a limited engagement leading up to the election. And we have also collected the vote of pamphlet arguments in favor of the proposal with additional endorsers, which you probably saw in the mail that came out. Yeah. We really appreciate that. We had lots of great arguments provided, and more than 30 people endorsing one of the arguments. So it was quite a few. And I was really happy to see people turn out to do that. We also created an updated informational flyer with the lower levy proposal rate and how much it would cost and why it's needed, because some folks are not aware. And we took that flyer around along with voter registration forms to all 3 mobile home parks. I think it was a week ago. We had 3 parks that we went door to door. And there was a lot of support expressed for the fire department. So that was good to hear. And we have designed a Vote Yes brochure that will be sent out to each address in the district at the end of April. So be watching out for that. At our last meeting, we discussed the need for a sign on the current station retrofit, explaining that the project is funded through a special grant, because we have heard comments in the community like, they don't need any money. Look what they're doing to that building. And some kind of like, thank you for, this grant, something like that they were hoping could be done. And also the need for a sign on the donated property at First Street, explaining that a new fire station on that site is not a part of the proposed levy, which I guess you could do by just saying that it is a future, site. There also seems to be a lot of misinformation in the community about that. And we have done flyers and issued online invitations for our community dinner. And it's a fundraising dinner this Saturday, the 26th of April from 4 to 6 p.m. We're having a wonderful Italian dinner, manicotti, beef and cheese with green salad and garlic bread and lemon ricotta cookies for dessert, and they are exquisite. And dinner is $10 per plate, and we're not doing a presentation on the levy at that dinner. We're just having a chance for people to ask questions if they have questions, and we will have like a levy calculation station to help people figure out, what their tax would be under the proposed levy, because we've seen a lot of folks have misunderstood how to do that. And I wanted to invite each of you to that dinner too on next Saturday. That me? No. And we're going to keep putting out reminders for people to register to vote or to update their registration by April 29th if they need to do that. We've got a sign going at the school sign, and we're doing it online and other places. And also encouraging people to remember to vote by May 20th. So that's where we are.
Okay, next up is Pam.
Okay, last Monday, we had a special work session over at my RV park to discuss the agreement for the fire chief to work that out. We had passed it out the last board meeting, agreed to have a special session to go over it. Bob and Joyce and I were there. Blau was there, and also Dave Connor was there. We worked through a lot of the agreement, made some changes. Joyce sent out both a clean copy as well as a track changes copy so that those who weren't there could see what the actual changes were. I have one copy here of the track changes if you didn't get a chance to read it. But we really hashed it out and I have it ready. If we can adopt it and sign it tonight and get that done. Clearly, the next board will revisit it again, depending on whether the levy is passed is going to make a difference. But I feel like we need to have something in place because it's been far too long that it has not been addressed. And for the protection of both the district and for Lyle as fire chief, we need to have something in writing that is set up. So if you want to see the track changes version, if you did not get a chance to see it before, I have a copy.
No, I read it today.
I don't know if Lon's.
But this hasn't been sent to a lawyer yet, right?
No, we didn't send it to a lawyer.
Okay.
Does it really need to? This is just an agreement between the board and the fire chief.
Well, what's the difference between an agreement and a contract?
Bob, do you have a definition of contract versus agreement?
Well, I don't know. Let's see here. So there is more legality to a contract than there is with an agreement. Agreement is usually an agreement between two parties with expectations in there and what you're expecting to get for that and what you're going to get in return. So if you want to do a contract, then they're going to put all the legalese in there. And other than that, I really can't tell you much more than that.
And I think a contract would be a lot more involved.
It's definitely more involved and will definitely require considerable expense. I don't know what. It's up to you guys. Depends on how you feel about it. I mean,
Okay, so you are recommending that we,
So I recommend that we go forward and go ahead and take care of the agreement tonight and at least get something in place, knowing that it will be revisited with the next board, but at least something would be in place. Then if the next board chooses that it should be some sort of a more formal contract, then we've got to get an attorney involved and make whatever changes to it would put it in a more formal tone than just an agreement, which sets out the expectations for the chief as well as for the board and the relationship between the two.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. After our meeting last Monday,
Mhm.
I took this thing home and I went top to bottom, first page, last page. On page 2 of this thing, board responsibilities and authorities. Should not those 7 or 8 items, whatever there is there, A through G, should all those not be in our policy book?
Actually, a number of them are in the policy book, but
And why
I
do
think
we need to have them here?
because I think it's important to have it clearly set out in an agreement, seeing as the policy book is not really, in some cases, not read by some people, or it's not clearly just in front of everything. To reiterate it here, I think is important to set out what's expected of the board and what's expected of the fire chief.
in other words, this is more binding to have it here as well as in the policy book.
I've been trying for a year. And I know Lyle didn't want to hear this, but I am wanting a job description for his position. I was told at that meeting on Monday last week that a job description is presented to an individual who is applying for a job. Where is the job description when Lyle applied for the job that he has?
Oh, look, I brought the policy book. It'll take me a minute. We have a job description in our policy. I'm aware.
So Bob, you were the president of the board when I applied. Well, there wasn't really an application process. When everyone else took a step back and I became the fire chief,
Correct,
you were the president.
correct.
You would be the one person in this room that would know where the job description was.
That's the reason I'm asking, where is it? Nobody knows.
That was how many years
That
ago?
was 3 years ago.
No, it's been longer than that. I've been gone.
I don't know. I know it's been over 2. I don't know. Where
In August, it'll be 3 years that I've been fire chief. It's coming August.
Well, going back to this that you guys talked about and that you got, I don't know if you remember or not, but last month I raised a question at the board meeting about the board responsibilities that are in this paper. I read those and I don't necessarily think those are bad board responsibilities, but along with Bob, I don't think that they should be in this. I think they should be in our policy book, which would be fine. And I think the board should probably be held to them. But when I look at this, whether you call it an agreement or whether you call it a contract, that to me, that says it's strictly about his job. And I don't think those should be in there. And I said that last month. And my thought hasn't changed.
So last month I offered to give an explanation and say.
Yeah.
Not hear it. Would you
Yeah.
like to hear it?
No, I wouldn't. Wow. So that's where I sit. And also, if we're gonna do something like this, without a lawyer looking at it and making sure that we're not opening ourselves up to get sued, I don't know about that, man. I think we should come up with what we want and then just send it to a lawyer and have a lawyer look at it. That's just my opinion. I mean, there's a 5-person board,
And why you
right?
weren't there. But that's why we went through all this and trying to decide what was appropriate. We did make changes to clarify some items. But, I think at this point to have an attorney look at it, that is, Bob says it's an extra cost, as well as, things will probably change with the next board. But I really feel like we need to have something in place, even if it is, amended or totally changed, which this allows for that to happen, for this to be, changed or replaced.
Okay.
Well, I will make a motion that we agree to offer the agreement that we worked out to our fire chief.
I second it.
Okay, so we've got a motion in front of the board to offer this agreement to the fire chief. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No,
No.
So it would be interesting to have some discussion. Normally you have discussion before the vote.
Mhm.
And the two that were absent at the work meeting, as with most work meetings.
That's not true.
He was out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
So the two that were not present at the
Well, I
meeting,
think you're out of order with the board.
Yeah. I agree. So,
Excuse me, Lon, you have missed the last two work meetings. The last two work sessions, you haven't been there. Actually, the last 5, you haven't been there
so.
because they
at
were
the
when Karen
meeting-
was here.
so
I
it,
was with Karen on some of them.
So if it's okay if we have discussion, I think discussion's good. Let's shine light.
I think that you're not a board member and that if one of these guys wants to have discussion, they can bring it up. And I don't think that
Clay,
you should be interrupted.
this is about his agreement.
What's wrong?
He has to be part of this if it's.
So you want to
him and
discuss it?
us.
Did you want to? Okay, fine.
Yes, I want
We
all of
should
it.
have done that before
We
you
had a
call
meeting.
your,
We have a
your
meeting to
motion.
discuss this.
The correct procedure is once
Make
there's,
a motion,
you call for further discussion.
then you
And
discuss.
after discussion is completed, you
Yes.
call for the vote.
Okay.
That is.
So I did the right
Okay,
thing.
so, you know,
I'm just clarifying for.
we should have had more discussion, but we screwed that up. Okay, fine.
Well,
So we took the vote. Now we want to have more discussion, right? You want to have more discussion?
I think that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, clarify where people's positions are. I think everyone should clarify where their position is, why they're voting or why they voted the way they did.
okay, well, I told you mine. I can tell it to you again if you want, but I mean,
Well, I think our fire chief has done a commendable job and he is working without any official backing here. I think it's very important that we support him, that we have something that's usable, that's verifiable, that's as good as we can come. I mean, it may not be perfect, but it's a good starting point, as Pam mentioned several times. There will be corrections. We will be making changes. We will be, adjusting things as we go along, but it gives us a good starting point, and I think it's only fair to our fire chief.
okay, you want me to, again, I don't think that the board stuff needs to be in there, and I think a lawyer needs to look at it before we actually present it to him.
Okay.
That's why I voted the way I voted.
So,
It's got nothing to do with his job performance. It's got everything to do with the way this is written and a lawyer not looking
Okay.
at it, right?
Vice President Thomas, may I comment on this?
Yeah, I suppose, I guess.
So I've said it before, this agreement does nothing for me. Through the lens of what's better for our department, this agreement shows future applicants that this board is functional. And up to this point, you have kicked this can down the road for 3 years. You are dysfunctional. You will never get another applicant. I believe you would like another fire chief or another applicant, or God forbid a bus hits me tomorrow, you're going to need to replace me at some point. You will not get a serious, intelligent applicant to a board of directors that can't function enough in 3 years with very little else to do, but have an agreement in place with their one employee. So that's important. And then to your question of why we would put things in there, we talked about this at the meeting that you were not at. Think of it as a guardrail. When people keep running off the same corner and dying on the cliff, eventually, Lonnie will know this, you put a guardrail in that spot because it's a problem for some reason. We don't have to figure out why, but if people keep running off the same corner, same spot, put up a guardrail. You have proven yourself, Clay. Lonnie has proven that we need guardrails in a couple of spots. That's what those are there for.
Okay, any more discussion?
Bob?
No, a public comment at the end of on number 9. You guys can comment.
My comment to this is you're correct. It becomes a continual issue. The guardrails put up. Where those guardrails are put up, there's engineers that come out and make sure that the guardrails are put in the right places and the safety features are met. Then the attorneys look at it and make sure that there's no liability put back to the company that is putting up the guardrails. For my take on this right now is we've talked about it before. Without an attorney looking at this to make sure that the board isn't being held negligent or liable for something that they did wrong, I disagree with putting this in place. We've talked about it before, and we said we didn't have the budget to give this to an attorney to have it looked over. I agree, our budget may be very tight. After I looked at some things there tonight that we're way over budget on. Yes, the levy cost us some money. It's outweighed a lot of our attorney fees from our budget. But again, I fully believe that somebody with more authority than this board right here should look at this agreement to make sure that all parties are not being held negligent or liable for the articles that are written. That's why I voted no.
Did you want to say anything?
Yeah,
Bob?
I've said,
Okay, any other motions?
This question, Bob, to Bob. What would it take to get an attorney to look at a simple 5-page agreement?
Well, first off, we'd have to all agree what we wanted to
That's
give
what
the
work session
attorney.
is for. So when are we going to get this in a shape that we could give to an attorney to have it reviewed instead of just kicking the can down the road again? I think this is important enough that we need to move forward on it. And if you need another work session where everybody will be there, then we have another work session. Or we see if we can get, perhaps, we could get an attorney to, or we could all go to an attorney to look at this and see, maybe spend an hour and find out what does and doesn't work with this, or what the suggestions are. I don't think we need them to necessarily rewrite it in full legalese. I think we just need to get an opinion. And if there is an attorney that we could perhaps get a time when we could all go in, sit with the attorney, talk about it, get it done, instead of just waiting for, at some point, well, gee, if maybe we'll have some money in the budget. This is important enough to spend a little bit to get it done. If that's what your objection is, then I think we need to determine an attorney who can look at it. Or perhaps there is, someone from like a legal aid kind of a thing, something where, there are volunteer attorneys for very low fees that could look at it. There should be a way to do this without just pushing it off because, oh, well, maybe we need to have an attorney look at it. And if they agree these things don't belong in here, or they should be revised a little bit, then we just get it done. And then we can sign it and be done.
But don't you think that the board needs to agree first what we are going to actually give to the attorney?
That's what we tried to do last Monday.
Mhm.
Well,
And so when are you proposing that we will go over this and decide what we want an attorney to see?
well, at the last regular scheduled board meeting, I brought up what I didn't like about this.
And that's
You
why
got-
we
and-
scheduled a work session.
Right. I would have said the same thing. But you guys apparently,
We went over it line by line, and Bob
Okay.
was there.
okay, well, so I'm all for it. We can have another work session if you guys want to. I don't care. But I don't believe this stuff should be in there in an agreement, a work agreement to the fire chief. And that's not going to change. So, I mean, I can show up at the meeting and, maybe you'll get 3 votes to leave it in there. Whatever. I'm just giving you my opinion, my thoughts, right? I mean, this is a
Yeah.
5-member board, right?
Right.
So you only need 3, right?
That's what we had.
So we can have another work session, but my thoughts on this aren't going to change. I will go to a work session if you guys want to, but my thoughts on that aren't going to change. I think if you want to have these, then we should write them up and we should put them in a policy book. That's
They're
just
actually in the policy book.
okay. Well,
And-
then
And I believe most of them are there because I was
Yeah.
reading through the policy book and I realized that it was sort of reiterated, but how do you enforce that though? If it's only in the policy book, let's suppose that a board member does something that is inappropriate. What are the consequences? How do we address that? How do we bring it to everybody's attention? What are the consequences for a board member doing something that is against the policy book? I don't believe there are consequences in there.
I don't know what the legal consequences would be. I don't know how the laws in the state of Oregon cover that. Because I haven't looked it up because I just haven't. And apparently nobody else has.
I think it would be,
So,
if the board decides that if a board member, violates one of these issues, then it would be up to the board to decide, well, maybe they're not allowed to vote in the next board meeting, or some sort of a sanction, more or less, such as that.
it would,
I think that would be up to the board to do that, and that should probably be put into,
Well,
once it's
it would-
decided, put it in the policy.
it would definitely be up to the board to make that
Correct.
decision. Legally, I'm not positive that you can tell a board member can. Maybe you can't. I don't know what the state of Oregon laws are. Every state's different. I know that in the state legislature in Maine censored that one gal, and she so she can't vote, but that's a state legislature. I mean, I don't know what the laws in Oregon are as far as a board saying, we find you in violation and we are going to take this step. Maybe we can do that, maybe we can't. That's definitely some research that somebody's gonna have to do and figure out what the Oregon state laws are and maybe talk to I don't even know who you talk to. It would take some research to do that. But yes, it definitely is up to the board to police ourselves. I don't know what the board can do. And apparently nobody else does either. I don't see anybody speaking up. So, I mean, that's something maybe that
If those were
somebody could
taken
look
out,
into.
if those were taken out, then where would your stance be on this agreement? Is there other things that you have?
Well, I don't know, because pretty much I saw one thing for sure, without it going to the lawyer, I ain't put my name on it. For sure.
That's good enough.
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look over it again. If we just went like that, I'd have to just look over it again really and see, you know,
And that's why we go to local government law. And so once we go past the freebies, SDAO, the attorney, we've used that up. So now we have to go to local government law group. They're in Eugene and they represent government organizations. And so they know all the laws, and the one attorney that we've used, can't remember the recent one that we used for the levy. That was a different person because that was his specialty. But Truman, I think is the guy. And but he's like $450 an hour, just so you guys know. And but when they get done with this will not look like this agreement whatsoever. It will be a contract with all the legal stuff in there about everything that has to be done and what the responsibility of the board is, as well as the responsibility of the chief and that. So it will look a whole lot different.
Well,
I don't know how much it'll cost, probably cost a couple $1,000s. I'm totally guessing on that.
I have a question in regards to this thing. Next month is the county elections. I will not be on this board because I'm not running for reelection. Are you?
No.
Ron will not be here. We have these three individuals here that are on the ballot, plus Mike Pearson, Hunter,
Natalie
or Gunner, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Gunner,
and
and
Natalie.
Natalie. You will have a whole new board. And if we're going to send this out to an attorney for a $2,000 bill.
I mean, I'm just probably guessing on that.
I understand that. If we wait a month, we'll have a new board.
no, because
Actually,
the new board,
won't be till
July.
July.
The new board will be voted by the public on the 20th of May.
Right, but they don't
The
actually.
county registrar's office has to certify those elections, and that will be done before the meeting in June, which is when the new officers from the meeting.
No.
No,
It's
No,
in July.
It can't be.
It is.
Because
As a matter of fact, you guys had changed, at one point it got changed to June and it got changed back to July. Because you take office in July, and at your first meeting, you elect your officers.
right.
So
I get where he's going with this. He's
They go-
going with wait till
they
the
take
new board.
their oath of office on July 1st,
Or whenever you have your first meeting.
or.
I don't know how that works.
So what do they do about board members between
I don't know.
the end of June?
Well,
and-
you're
and
still
the-
serving till the end of June.
I understand that, but from the 1st of July, you have a 2 or 3 person board for 20 days or
know
whatever it
that
is till the next meeting.
Yeah, well,
You do. You
It's a
just
good
can't
point.
vote on
It used to
anything.
be.
You do. You have a 2-member board. You just can't vote on anything and
You can't
pass
vote on
anything.
anything.
You can't pass anything with only 2 of 5 board members, but
Correct.
you have a 2-member board till the other ones are
We had
on.
a 3-member. Us.
Or a 3-member
We-
board.
we-
okay,
When I was on the board before, we did in June, And the new board officers took over on July 1st
Okay.
because they'd already been sworn in. The old board stayed on until the end of June. And then when they left, the new ones took over the next day.
But they were sworn in.
They were already sworn in.
Well,
That's the way we did it before.
I just know you guys changed it back.
It's, yeah, it's changed to July.
Because it was weird anyhow, the way it got done, but it was first, it used to be July, then it got moved to June.
June.
July makes
Problem
more
is
sense.
The old board was electing the new
Yeah, that's weird.
members. New board hadn't taken over yet, so.
Oh.
Anyway, so here, I think Bob's story is, in 3 months, there's gonna be a new board. Can we get this through the attorney in 3 months? And are we willing to spend the money it takes to get this done? I will make the motion, because for the good of the order, we do send it to the attorney, which is what we've talked about forever, and we never had the money to do it. We probably don't have the money now, but the only way to fix this, in my opinion, is to have legal look at it.
But we're not all on the same page, what we want legal to even look at.
I think legal is gonna tell us what can be in this. Or they'll make a new contract. The way it won't be on our shoulders to know that that's not legal. It's opening up for lawsuits or not finding properly.
Okay, well, I think that whatever, you made a motion. If somebody wants a second, I think that we should figure out what we want to send to legal first, because if we send it to legal, the legal writes some up, and then some of us still don't agree with the wording of it and aren't going to vote for it. I mean, maybe there'd be 3 people voted for it. I don't know, you know?
Let's sit down at a special work session and do this. Get it in proper format, what we consider, and then send it to legal to have it looked at.
I'm gonna go out on the limb right now and tell you that the month of May, I will not be available for any special workshops with my work because I'm in the middle of bargaining contracts right now.
So it's gotta be done this month.
So I
Out on the 28th. That's budget committee day.
Yeah, I don't think there's any days left this month.
What's Monday next week? Days of 20.
That's Monday, Monday
Yeah.
next week.
That's budget committee.
Yeah, that's the budget committee meeting.
And, I'm out of
And
town.
how-
Well, we all have to be at that too.
It's 7 o'clock.
Okay, one day.
Yeah.
Do we do it on, you're
Yeah,
available
you
on
can do it on another
Tuesday,
day. I don't care. Just can't do it on Monday.
right?
Feels like Groundhog Day.
I know.
Tuesday.
You available on Tuesday?
She did
No, I'm not available Tuesday.
everything from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 p.m.
Tuesday next week.
Wednesday, I have bargaining from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Tuesday morning. You say 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Morning.
2 o'clock.
Oh.
Or 9 o'clock.
Tuesday start work.
I guess.
1 o'clock.
You didn't mention that.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. For my life right now,
Your work's out.
unfortunately, my work has my soul.
So where are we at?
I made a motion and it didn't go anywhere, so.
And
Is Sunday, the 27th available?
No, it's not. I'm busy all that day. I have 3 things that day.
I'm out of town starting on the 1st.
how about a daytime?
Well, if we're gonna do daytime, Lauren's not gonna be able to be there anyway, so we could, if he's not gonna be there, we could do it anytime. If we decide that we don't care if he's there or not, whatever. I mean,
4 people?
Yeah, but then we're
Right.
back to where we were
That's where we
before.
were before. I think everybody needs, if you guys are really wanting to have a say in what would go to an attorney, then everybody needs to be there. We can't just do this piecemeal.
I don't care what goes to the attorney. The attorney's gonna tell us what we can and can't do.
Then I don't see a problem with just taken what we have and they'll flat out tell us this is inappropriate in this document or it's not. I don't think we need to have them rewrite it. I think all we need is an opinion as to look at it and say, no, I don't think this belongs in here. Or if you're concerned about this, then say this, but not to rewrite the document. If we want them to do a contract, that'd be different. But for an agreement between the board and the fire chief,
Well, what's the difference between an agreement? That's a question for the
contract
attorney.
has a lot more, and that could be another question to get an opinion on. But perhaps we can find, maybe it's not through the SDA, maybe we can find through some sort of, it may not necessarily be free, but low cost, someone who's familiar with contract law or agreements and employment agreements that can take a look at it and give us an opinion without having to go through the current attorneys that the district does.
Again, we would have to agree on what we were going to ask him. And I
Well,
think that's where we're stymied.
and I think what to
Um,
ask is this appropriate? Is this not appropriate? How can we make sure that both the chief and the board are protected? And that's the main thing.
Yes.
Is to have an agreement as to what each of us, what the expectations are for each party in this agreement between two entities, and what their expectations of each are, and what, just those kinds of details. And I think that's basically, the understandings that we need to have. And if they say these are really not appropriate in this, so, okay, we take those out and we make sure that we've got those covered in the policy book.
Okay, say we take this, we hand it to the lawyer. He says, a few changes here and there, basically okie dokie. If 3 people aren't going to vote for it anyway, we've just wasted lawyer dollars.
That's what I was saying earlier.
That's not what I said. I said if the attorney puts his stamp on it, I'm okay with this. Exactly what I said.
Okay.
All right, may we hear, because we've got a comment.
On this particular situation, I know a little bit about what you're talking about. Who wrote this agreement? Who wrote it?
It started with something that was put together in September of 2023 from the,
Where are the bylaws?
Here is our policy book.
The bylaws and the policies and procedures are 2 separate documents.
We don't have bylaws as such.
The bylaws are the legal binding document. Policies and procedures more than likely are not legal binding depending on the organization. The agreement you're talking about is more likely not legal binding. It sounds like this agreement was just put together to set a standard between the board and the chief, which sounds appropriate. However, I'm coming from the outside. I know nothing about this agreement. I never read it. I do know though, bylaws, if you have those are legally binding. So if those are not formed, those should be a priority, not this agreement, which in this case, this agreement that you're talking about, everything you're putting in this agreement will be in your bylaws that you have to then abide by. That's what the lawyer is going to tell you. Where are the bylaws? You're going to pay a lawyer $200 an hour to tell you where are your bylaws.
And that's something that this fire district was formed. When was this fire district formed? 1953. So I know from the community hall that when they were looking at things, they found that they originally had bylaws back in the day, but everybody lost track of them. But the state had a copy of the original bylaws. Now, I don't know about fire districts that were done in 1953. Could there be bylaws that were done? And then over between 1953 and now, people just kind of, but yet they're still legally bound by the state has them or not? I mean,
I'll bring them to speed real quick. 2 years ago, we adopted bylaws from sisters who adopted them from Swamp Valley Fire and Rescue.
No, that's right.
They agreed to, so policy is the bylaws. It's the same.
But she said they're not.
no,
In some organizations, they call it different, but in special districts,
Oh.
policy replaces bylaws. So back in the day, they were called bylaws. The policy is what we adopted 2 years ago. Again, we've kicked things down the road again and again and again. Here we are still working on book 1 of 5. And so we don't have either
So maybe it sounds like the policy procedures just need to be updated, not have a special agreement. That's just my take on it.
Well, yeah,
Thank you.
I don't know about special district. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to find out about the article corporations and the bylaws. If there's any at the state level, we'll find out if there is any. There probably was originally when this thing was formed. But what I noticed when I saw a few things of policies and procedures and articles and bylaws, when you guys had them before, they all seemed to disappear, is what you did was if there was a certain thing that says you will have this in your policies and procedures, your thing that you created said, we will have this. That is not creating the specific article that you need. So, but at some point you had to have done it right, or you would have never been granted a special district status. You are a government entity of the state of Oregon. And so there has to be something
Somewhere.
So they're there, but those bylaws include things such as if the fire is towards Crater Lake, listen
Yeah.
for the tone. If it's one blast, go Crater Lake. If it's
But-
two, go towards the gorge.
Yeah.
We can find them.
But we can change.
Help nothing.
Well, I don't know about special districts, but I know that nonprofits can change their bylaws.
Oh, yeah.
But
Anybody.
so the first, in my opinion, if we're talking about bylaws, we're off of where we were talking about this. But if we're talking about bylaws, the first step to that would be to contact the state. And I'm not sure if it's a state auditor. My wife would know but special districts might be different. But contact the state somehow, figure out who does that, and find out what's on. If there was bylaws,
Well,
and
there
then
was.
what they are,
They might be just like Lyle
And
said.
you're willing to do that.
but then we need,
That's gonna be Secretary of State or Department of Justice.
but they can be changed though. If they are goofy like that, then maybe the board needs to look at those, and that's a whole separate issue, right?
The policy.
But I mean, they're probably recorded at the state. It's a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, so-
This
Um,
is the discussion we had when Ryan Commercialist said, let's just wipe the slate clean and adopt sister
Adopt
thing.
these.
We've done this. We've figured this out. We've painfully talked about this and kicked it down the road
Yeah.
for years now.
Yeah.
You've got nowhere.
If you have the bylaws then for sisters,
Yeah.
there's your outline of
Yeah.
rules. that
We
you
have
abide by.
revised, fixed, changed, revised, double revised again, and voted on it. So we do have policy book one.
Good, so there you
Yes.
go. So this agreement, it sounds like it really is not meant to be contractual. It's just an agreement between board and
Yes.
set of standards. That is what it says.
Yes, agreements and
And I'm
understandings.
sure somewhere in your bylaws, it says that there can be something made between board and chief. I'm hoping anyway. That would be the next place. We're looking to see if there's something in that states you guys can do that, because you still are a governing body. You're separate from you guys. So if you're creating something for you and for him to benefit both sides and the fire district, then I don't see any reason to involve an attorney if you already have things in your policies and procedures that
Yeah.
will protect you in the event something went haywire, which more than likely that agreement you wrote is not going to be legally binding in the court of law. Most likely.
But right now, there's no protection in place because there's nothing.
Right.
Well, there's the adopted
Yeah.
sisters.
If that man right there decides he's had enough of this, he could file anything with the state right now.
Mhm.
The Bureau of Labor and this board is in big trouble.
And I could say Lon Stockelbrand pulled me aside 3 years ago and told me I'd get full retirement if I served one day. I've served it.
Yeah,
Where's my retirement?
because there's nothing in place that actually states how things are gonna be done. And without anything, anybody can say anything, and now we're into a long lawsuit.
That's the bylaws, right? That's the policy procedure. It's
Yes.
informal agreement.
Just keep pushing it down the
Okay.
road, push it down the road, push it down.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
So where are we at?
Pushed. I think we're stymied.
Then I would suggest that each of us carefully go over what you've already done in the policy book and specifically look for things that would cover this. And that we talk about that at our next board meeting, bring up anything, each of us bring up anything that we found that we feel would be appropriate if we can. have the authority to put some sort of an agreement together between the board and the chief, or the board and anybody,
Well, why wouldn't we?
then we can take a look at this. And if all these things that you're objecting to, as far as the expectations for the board's behavior, if they're already in the policy book, then each of us is going to know they are in the policy book, and that's what we are supposed to adhere to as far as our own individual actions.
That's fine. Why wouldn't we be able to do something with the contract or an agreement with, I don't see, I mean, we can look at the policy book if you want.
Well, I mean,
It wouldn't hurt for all of us to look at the policy book again
I think
anyways.
a contract would be an appropriate way to go, but clearly that is not something that is going to happen with this current board. And perhaps it can be addressed with the next board, but in the meantime, I think we need to all be aware of what is and isn't in the policy book, which is related to what we've put in this agreement. And if that means that we take some things out of the agreement and make it palatable for the rest of you to be able to get something
Put it
signed,
into the
then we
policy
can do
book.
it. Or we take some of this and put it in the policy book as it relates to the chief. But there needs to be something that is going to protect the chief and protect the board. And if we could come up with something where we don't have to spend a whole lot of money initially for an agreement, that's because things, let's face it, when the levy passes, this is going to change, because what's in here only covers as it exists as the chief's position is right now. But it will change with the passage of a levy. So that would have to be revisited anyway. And at that point, maybe that's when you go to an attorney about it.
What day do we vote?
I mean, it's
May 20th.
May 20th. And we're gonna have our meeting on the 19th.
Yes.
So we will know probably, let's say, on the 22nd or 3rd, what happened with the levy. So if we can't get this passed before May 22nd or 23rd, we're gonna rewrite it anyways. Maybe, I guess if the levy doesn't pass, then we're potentially, right?
Right.
So I agree that we should all look at the policy book, like you said, and we should talk about it again next month and see where we're at. And then, like I said, we'll know on the 22nd, which is a couple days after our meeting, on whether the levy passes or not, right?
Mhm.
But we could still talk about this and try to maybe get it ready on the chance that the levy doesn't pass. If it doesn't pass, then we've got one already. If it passes in 3 days after
And I
the
think a
thing, then,
comparison with the policy book is going to answer a lot of those questions.
okay. So we're gonna revisit this next month is what we're thinking?
On the agenda.
Does anyone mind if I take a 3-month vacation and just come back? It'll be paid. And I'll just come back and you guys can let me know what you've come up with. We will have a new board. Hope there's no
Hopefully
objection to
not.
that.
Hopefully you won't,
There's nothing
but I
saying
would
can't.
fully understand.
There's nothing saying I cannot.
That's true.
Lonnie, all right with that?
Hey, Lyle, you're your own man, buddy. Do what you want.
Thank you. Clay, we're good? 3 months paid vacation?
Okay, so we're gonna go on.
no,
Number 8.
Number
you
7.
don't get paid for a
7?
job you don't do.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Number 7. So what did you think about policy change?
Okay, I've written it out so I don't misspeak. Policy book 1 lists the duties of the board president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. It does not address a process for when a board president resigns. The policy states 1 about the vice president, in the president's absence or when requested by the president of a majority of the board, the vice president shall have the duties and the powers and duties of the president of the board as described in policy 1-3-1. 2, the vice president shall have such other powers and duties as a majority of the board may from time to time determine. We currently have no policy about what happens when a president resigns. There are 2 obvious options to me. 1, the board could elect a new president, or 2, the board could make a policy that states that when a president resigns, the vice president automatically becomes the president and a new vice president is elected by the board. The formal installment of a new president should happen at the first meeting held after the resignation of the president. This board has acted in different ways in the recent past when the board member resigned. One time, they voted for a new president. Another time, they assumed that the vice president automatically took the duties of the president, although not voted into position of president by the board. We need to decide which way we will proceed and update our policy book to reflect this. I personally think that the board should be allowed to elect a president at the board meeting who may or may not be the vice president. If the vice president is voted as president, a new vice president needs to be voted in at the same meeting. And I think that needs to be added to our policy book.
Okay. Well, I think, I agree that we definitely need to change things because when Wayne resigned, then Julie took over and we never voted anybody in, but then Julie resigned and then we only had one officer,
Yeah.
right? Which was you.
So I ended up
So,
taking
so we really stepped on it there,
Yes,
right?
we did.
So I totally agree that we need to add something and we need to change things. What I thought was, when the elected board president leaves the board, creating an open position, the vice president shall assume the role of president. The board will then vote on a new vice president. Both will serve until the following July when the new board officers are elected.
Okay, but we've done it on this board. They've done it 2 different ways.
You're right.
Okay,
We need to
so that needs
decide
to
it
be
and stick
decided.
it in. I
Okay.
agree. We
Okay.
just need to decide what,
We do.
and whatever we decide, it can go on page 16, 5.02, which is right under, I don't know, it's right there somewhere. Anyways, so yes, we do. We need to have something in play for that. I think, the reason I wrote this up is because, if you look, there might be a board somewhere that votes on a new president or whatever, but like our government and everything that I know of, the state government, the federal government, and the vice president takes over and then they put in another vice president. We can do whatever we want, I
Right.
think, right?
Right.
But I'm just letting you know that that's where I was coming from, looking
Okay.
at precedent with our governments and stuff, thinking, well, if
We just need.
our
to
governor
decide what to do.
dies or whatever, right? Then the lieutenant governor, yeah, anyways, that's what I think. So, but yes, I think we do need to decide something. And I think we need to put it in there to avoid what happened when you were the only
It was a mess.
person on there.
I'll go out next and say, I agree with Clay. Our democratic system has a system in place where vice president steps up into the presidency spot and then you've got a new vice president like that. It's going on the lines of the way everything else works. And I think that's what we should adopt into our policy. I'll make that motion.
I'm gonna add a little bit of discussion on that one. I know,
But we need a second to this, a motion, then we can discuss. Do we have a second?
I said,
Discussion.
so on this, in this organization, the one thing that the president does that's different than any of the other board members is works closely with the fire chief. Other than that, the president has the same vote as everyone else. Attends the same work meetings, does the same stuff. With the exception of Lon Stockerbrand, I met with, when he was president, I met with Ryan Cargill. Lon didn't want to meet, so I met with the vice president. We met weekly. I met weekly with Wayne Scriven. I met weekly with Julie. This is probably the most critical relationship in the district is between the board president and the fire chief, because it's or it's the bottleneck between operations and policy and direction and goals.
And number two, in our definition of the duties of the president, say, the president shall consult with the fire chief regarding the preparation of each board meeting agenda. It is what the president does.
So what the spot that we're in is you elected a vice president that seems to be unwilling to communicate, look in the eye, or speak to the fire chief. We're in a spot. Had you known that you were going to where the vice president just becomes president, when an officer leaves, it just gets shuffled, maybe you would have taken that vice president appointment, thought about it a little differently. Because we're in a spot now. We're in an unworkable spot. I've tried. Clay refuses. So you're pushing the district into a position of further dysfunction.
Okay. I don't want to get in an argument with you here, but that's something that maybe we should discuss after this. As far as mine and your relationship.
Well,
But-
it's the job. It's your job. That's what it says your job is
Right.
as president.
And I have
Is to
no
meet with
problem
him.
dealing with Lyle.
I asked
As
you,
of last meeting, twice you said you wouldn't meet with him.
you won't even speak to me. You won't look at me when I'm
You said
speaking
you
to you
wouldn't speak
now.
to
You
me.
won't let me speak.
I never said I wouldn't speak to him.
Yes, twice last meeting.
I asked you during the meeting and after the meeting. And I've asked you during this meeting. And you're like, "I'd rather not hear from you."
Okay. Let's clear this up once and for all.
Let's do it.
For the first thing, you're not a board member and you're not a board member.
Right.
We understand that you guys can say stuff, but for you to interrupt the board, that training that we went to at your house with me, you and Lyle, they specifically talked about, I think they were talking about the audience, but it comes down to anybody not interrupting the board. This is our hour. We have 1 hour per month. If last month when you said, do you want to hear what I had to say? I didn't want to hear that. If one of the other board members would have piped up and said, I'd like to hear what the chief has to say, or I'd like to hear what Bob Jones has to say. I've asked both of you guys questions in board meetings, right? Haven't I, Bob? Asked you a question if I've had a question on stuff, right? The point being is a board member needs to want to have that interaction.
But
Okay?
the fire chief is our one employee. The fire chief is the most important
But that
person in
doesn't
our
not
district.
give him or
and
Bob
we-
the right to interrupt us. Last month, when he said something, if one of you two would have said, I want to hear what the chief's got to say, fine. We're all the same up here. The only difference with me is that I run the meeting.
No, after the
You
meeting,
know.
he said, would you like to get together with me? And you said, no.
Yeah.
You said, no, I would not like to get together. It is your responsibility as the president to get together with him.
Okay. I was just explaining. About
I'm
the
just
meeting.
saying what happened at the very last meeting and at my house also. He said, let's get together and have coffee. And you walked out the door like it didn't happen. So you have had opportunities to meet with him that I personally have watched. And twice at the last meeting, you said, no, you didn't want to meet with him. So that's where the problem's going to come in here. That is the job, meeting with the fire chief.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
I think it should be, because the position of president is a big responsibility of time and effort and the time to meet with fire chief, et cetera, then it very well could be that whoever's vice president really doesn't have that time and to just move into that job. I think maybe there should be a vote so that someone who's on the board that does have the time to deal with those duties could be voted in, as opposed to just going up in the ranks. So it seems, there are two ways to do it, but I think that the part of the job, which is being a liaison with the fire chief, is critical. And if that's something that is difficult or for someone to do, if they're vice president and they they work 40 hours a week, they've got a whole bunch of stuff, and they can be on the board, but they really can't step into those duties, then it should go to somebody who does have that time.
Okay, Bob, do
Okay.
you have something you want to add?
No,
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second that the vice president automatically becomes president.
So we need to vote on that.
We
and
need
see
to
if it-
vote.
Okay. So all in favor of Lon's
No, you
motion?
have to do it individually.
Okay. So all in favor individually of the motion for the vice president stepping forward and electing a new vice president, isn't that what you said? We would then elect a new vice president at that point.
Oh, I missed what you said. Are you saying automatically going
Mhm.
vice president? Okay.
Right.
I would vote no.
I vote no.
I would vote yes.
I vote no.
Okay. So then,
I think that that ought to be an appointed position by the board and then voted on by the board.
okay,
Like you said, maybe he won't have time to do 40 hours a week to, or whatever that amount of hours is, to make sure that everything that the board president required.
So,
If you look at the duties of the vice president in the policy manual, in the president's absence or when requested by the president or a majority of the board, the vice president shall have the powers and duties of the president of the board as prescribed in policy 131, which means that if the majority of the board says that the vice president can't do it, he can't do it.
so you're saying that if there's an opening for president, then the board just takes another election for president and the vice
Yes.
president stays, is that what that's what you're
Yes.
saying?
yes,
Yes,
Okay.
they elect a new president and the vice president does not move up.
right. So are you making that motion?
He's saying it's in the policy, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay,
Their powers and duties as a majority of the board makes from time to time. Determined. I don't think that
If I have to make a motion that the president
is,
resigns or leaves or dies or whatever, and we have to replace the president, it will be voted on by the board. The vice
Okay.
president does not automatically move up.
okay, I will second that.
any other discussion?
By the way, that doesn't preclude the vice president from
Right,
wanting to be voted on
Of course.
to be president, in which
Mhm.
case then
They would-
they'd vote a new vice president.
right.
Yes.
So. Okay, well,
But it'd be a
Well-
decision of the board.
so how are we gonna write that up? So. Because we need to write it up.
I
Well,
will.
let's vote for this first and then we'll, if it passes, then we'll know what we're looking at.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion was when when there's a vacancy for the president, then the rest of the board then holds a election for a new president.
It could be any position.
Yeah.
Not just the
Okay,
president. It
okay,
could
okay.
be, if Joyce falls over dead, we have to have somebody
Okay,
to
okay,
replace her. So
okay.
that's what we would do is we would elect somebody to fill Joyce's position.
Got it.
Okay, so all in favor of that? Pam?
Yes,
Mhm.
Nay.
Yes.
Juan?
Sure.
Okay,
okay,
well, now we need to decide exactly how we're gonna write that up so we can get it in,
let's see what I have in here.
when. How about when any officer, when any
Can no longer fulfill
there
the
isn't-
duties.
when any officer can no longer fulfill their duties. How's that
Okay.
sound?
Mhm.
The board will immediately
Elect
elect
a replacement.
a replacement.
About the next board meeting.
At the
At
next
the,
board.
okay, yeah, at the next
Yeah.
regular board
scheduled
meeting, elect,
What was it again? The board. Will
elect a replacement at the next regularly scheduled board.
Gallery here, maybe will not or cannot execute their duties. It could be that they are technically capable and they do not, they're resigning.
right.
They're still physically capable.
Got it?
That Joyce, that'd be 1-3-6.
Okay,
Okay,
got it. Thanks.
so we got that. Any other book one policy changes?
No, but now we need to handle this.
Okay, so we can be done with number 7, right?
No, we aren't, because we have to now vote in a president
Right.
and a vice
Number
president.
8 is election of board
Oh, okay.
officers. I put that
Okay.
down there because
Okay.
we were going to elect somebody
Okay.
regardless of
Got it.
whether the vice president took over, you're gonna elect, we were gonna elect somebody,
Got it.
right? So that's number 7. So number 8, election of board officers, which is, we have one for right now. Unless me or Joyce gets elected president, then we would vote for that. So, do we have any,
Nominations?
they're not, yeah, nominations, there you go.
I
For,
nominate Pam.
I second.
okay, are there any other nominations? Okay. So,
We vote.
all in favor of Pam becoming the next president?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what I vote. Sure, yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay,
Now
And
start at
I
the
have a
beginning.
Now-
question.
now, yeah, I'll go ahead and finish this, right? I mean, we're down to public comment
Yeah.
anyways, right? No, yeah, okay.
I have a comment in regards to an earlier thing. I knew it was here. I just couldn't find it. Board meeting of officers that are appointed after the election.
Oh, okay.
Annually, at the June board meeting, the board shall hold an election of board officers, and you get down a little farther, and it says a majority of the board is required for electing board officers. Board officers will be seated immediately after they are elected.
That sounds like the old policy.
That
It is
is,
the old
that is the old one.
It's
You've got an old
never-
copy.
They've got the wrong one. You got the wrong one in your book. Somebody didn't.
It's the one, well, that's Lyle's job, according to the policy manual. But I'm saying that's what's in the book.
Oh,
I think the only thing we changed on that was June and July, right,
Yeah.
Joyce? I mean, it's the only,
remember that.
the only
Mhm.
words we changed.
Yeah.
Um,
We did change it.
okay,
This was corrected in August of 23.
anything else?
You've done it since 23.
Okay,
Anyway, that's what I have.
so we're done with the
We
election of
didn't
board
move forward.
officers.
Okay.
Are we, does anybody else have anything to say before we go into public comment?
Pam has been
Nice job.
elected to be the new vice president.
President.
Um,
Oh, I see. Thanks.
Okay, so number 9, public comment. Limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have any public comment?
I do. Bob Scott,
Sir,
last Monday's special meeting, you had some comments about me.
I did.
Yeah. Got to repeat those?
Can I do that? Or can I not?
We're not really
I'm not supposed to do that by
Okay.
board.
It was not executive session. You can say whatever you want about a special. meeting.
Public meeting.
It was a
I will,
workshop.
I will,
But our policy book says we're not supposed to respond to public comments during our board meeting.
how about afterwards?
No. You made it in a public forum. You accused me of taking a flat top grill from the fire department.
No, I did not.
And then you said you knocked on my door and wanted it back. And I told you that was payback.
Are you
Yeah,
talking
it
to
is.
this, Joyce?
Exactly what you said.
No, it isn't.
You lied then and you're lying now.
I talked to your wife,
No, you didn't.
not to you the first time.
No, you never talked to her. You said, I bet you don't even know where I live, let alone not.
You're in the grade 2 story on Blue Falls Highway there on the first one on the right side. I know where you live.
You never talked to her either. You lied last Monday.
No.
And you lied, and you're lying about it now.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're a liar, fake, and a fraud. Right down to your stolen valor Purple Heart stickers that you had to peel off the bumper of your truck.
You don't have them.
I know you don't, because you had to take them off.
You never had them.
Bullshit. You're lying again. That's what you do, Bob. The great thing is, I know it, the community knows it, and the great thing is, you know it. That's the best part of all. So if you want to go running your mouth about me, do it to my face. Don't do it behind my back. I can take anything anybody's got to say to me to my face. And if it's a lie, I'm going to call you right then and there. But don't pull that bullshit with me again. Never.
Jesse Brownlee has a comment on that she'd like to make on via phone here. If you're done, sir.
I'm good.
Just calling her, just. Can you hear us, Jesse? Go ahead, you're on. Your time's running, Jesse.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so the number of times I have heard we need to have more discussion on this, specifically in regards to the Chiefs agreement, is pretty disgusting. Particularly, it's coming from Clay. We need more discussion. I couldn't count that on two hands. It sounds like you have missed the last 5 opportunities for discussion. I think at least 2 of them you scheduled and said you would be there. So you're asking for more discussion. You've literally not shown up for the discussion. So you're preventing progress when you are literally not showing up to do the thing that you say you're wanting to do. I'd like to go back to your campaign, which I'm presuming these were your words at the very bottom of the large group of concerned citizens mailer that we all got. It says, we need unity, honesty, transparency, and compassion on our fire board. I feel respecting and supporting our community and the fire department volunteers is urgently needed. That is what you said on your campaign. And it is urgently needed. And we've been waiting on it from you for the last 2 years, sir. Step up to the plate. It is yours. Step up.
That it, Jesse?
That's it.
Do we have any more public comment?
We all live in the same community. Why can't you guys still arguing about stupid shit? After 4 years ago, this guy does a lot for this community. You guys just fucking don't recognize it. He will show up at your house if you're having a fucking heart attack, but you show no respect. None.
Is there any more public comment? Okay. Do we get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.